Hello and welcome to a late edition of Blind Eye Live, Blind Eye in the Morning. I'm Hunter King, Blind Eye himself, owner and proprietor of Blind Eye Media. And I'm sorry the show's a little late today. I had a phone call that I had to take right as I was getting ready to go live at 8. So I'm about, 15 minutes late, and I'm sorry for that. But we're still going to have a good show this morning. We're going to talk a lot of NBA this morning because, well, I'm a little burnt out talking about the draft and stuff. That doesn't mean we won't have some little news and nuggets if there's some NFL stuff here before we get into things, but or in the middle segment, should I say, because we're going to start by getting into just talking a little bit about last night's games. We had our second set of game ones for round two. Sixers, the Sixers at the Miami Heat, and the Mavericks at the Phoenix Suns. So we're going to start Mavs Suns. Suns handled their business in game one against the Dallas Mavericks. Devin Booker's back healthy. I think the Suns are going to win that series. The Mavs are going to give them a good series. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I think it's like some kind of guaranteed sweep or anything, but I'm going to say that I still don't. I really don't think the Mavs are going to take more than one game in that series. Personally. That final score was 121 to 114 last night. And the game wasn't particularly close until the very end. The Mavs had a really good fourth quarter, but they had to outscore the Suns by 10 to finish down 7. I mean, they were outscored 35 to 25 to start the game. 34-21 in the second quarter, 27-23 in the third quarter, and the Mavs just kind of made it close-ish late. And it didn't seem like, until the fourth quarter, it didn't really seem like they found any kind of lineup that stuck until late, when the Suns, really weren't necessarily trying to come or to, pulverize them. I mean, the game was at hand. Your best lineup for the night involved Josh Green. He was plus 11 on the game in 10 minutes. All he did statistically was put 2 rebounds up. He didn't shoot the ball, didn't do anything. I feel like he's being wasted in Dallas, or his just feels like he's not being utilized enough. The worst player the least valuable player in this game seemed to be Maxi Kleber, who was minus 16, but statistically speaking, 6 of 9 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3, 2 of 5 from the line. He only had a rebound. He had 1 block, 19 points. It seems more that the overall team defense wasn't good enough against the Suns. Dorian Finney-Smith played 40 minutes, 5 of 10 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 3 offensive rebounds out of his 6 total, 1 steal, 15 points. But a lot of people weren't super effective. Reggie Bullock fouled out of this game. After 33 minutes played, he went 2 of 7 from the field, all of those shots from 3, 6 rebounds, a steal. He was minus 11. Finney-Smith was minus 5. Bullock only had only 7 points. Dwight Powell only played 16 minutes in this game, 2 of 3 from the field, 1 rebound, which is nuts. Like, their bigs could not get rebounds in this game. He had 2 fouls, was minus 10. 4 points. They only played him 16 minutes. Brunson, 31 minutes, 6 of 16 from the field, misses only 3 attempts. 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal. He was -7 with 13 points, 4 fouls, and a turnover. Doncic had an amazing game. 45 points on 15 of 30 shooting. He was 4 of 11 from 3, 11 of 14 from the free throw line. 12 rebounds, including 2 offensive, 8 assists, almost a triple-double, a block, 5 turnovers, only 1 foul. He was -4. So, their closing, I think their lineup that got them, it just seemed like anytime he wasn't on the court, things went bad for the team. Because, I mean, he was only -4 for this game. I guess that means when he was off the court, they were only -3. So, but I guess it depended on which lineup. It seemed like Maxi Kleber was, and Dwight Powell and Bullock weren't great. I'm going to guess that closing lineup that did so well from them involved, considering he played 44 minutes. That's going to be Doncic, Green. Let's say Doncic, Green, Dinwiddie, because he was +2, and Davis Bertans, because he was +4. And then maybe Dorian Finney-Smith and Jalen Brunson were rotating there. And then obviously Ntilikina was +1 in 2 minutes, so maybe he was a part of it. I get to watch this game last night personally, but read some of the reports. Guys who didn't get on the court tonight for them, Trey Burke, Sterling Brown, Boban, and Marquise Chris. I mean, their shooting numbers really good. 47.1% from the field's all right. I mean, 41% from 3, hitting 16 out of 39. That's really good. 18 and 25 from the free throw line. So, the Suns were just better, though. Jay Crowder played 28 minutes. He went 4 of 6. Let me pull this up for y'all. Why do I not have the box score up for y'all too? Well, if I'm hitting it, there we go. Okay. So, back to it. So Jay Crowder, 28 minutes, 4 of 6 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, 8 rebounds, 2 offensive, 3 assists, a block, 3 turnovers, 5 fouls, 11 points. He was -2. Michael Bridges, 42 minutes, 4 for 9, 1 for 3 from the field, 4 for 4 from the line, 7 rebounds, 3 offensive, 4 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, no turnovers, 5 fouls, 13 points. He was +7. Ayton was +10. 20 from the field, 1 of 1 from the line, 8 rebounds with 3 offensive, a block, 25 points, 1 foul. Like I said, +10. You got Booker, 38 minutes, 7 of 20 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3, but 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Oh, I skipped Chris Paul. I'll go back to him. So he did well from the line and really good rebounding. 9 rebounds, 3 offensive. He had 8 assists, no steals, a block, only 1 turnover, 1 foul, 23 points +6. Considering he wasn't extremely effective shooting the ball, he was really effective everywhere else. Chris Paul, 7 of 13 from the game, 2 of 5 from 3, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. He had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, a block, a turnover, 3 personal fouls. He was +14, scored 19 points. It's just, and he only played 29 minutes. Booker played 38, which probably explains why. I'm going to say that Booker was on the court for some of the Mavs surge late, but we'll see. Torrey Craig only played 3 minutes, missed his only shot, which was a 3, had a rebound and a turnover, -2. Probably played at the very end of the game. Cam Johnson, 24 minutes, 6 of 10 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3, made both his free throws, 5 rebounds, 1 offensive, 1 assist, 2 turnovers, 3 personal fouls, 17 points. He was plus 8. JaVale McGee played 14 minutes, 2 of 3 from the field, with 4 points, 3 rebounds, 1 offensive, 2 assists, a steal, 2 fouls, -2. Let's see. Cameron Payne in 19 minutes, 4 of 8 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, turnover, 9 points. He was -7. Makes me think he was out on the court for a lot of the fourth quarter. And then Landry Shamet, 9 minutes. He missed his only shot attempt. He had 2 rebounds and assists and 1 foul. He was +3. I'm thinking, is that guy's name Isaiah Wainwright? Bismack Biyombo, Alfred Payton, and Aaron Holiday did not play in the game. The Suns didn't shoot as many threes. They shot 39.3%. They made 5 less threes. And they honestly shot... Well, they shot a better percentage from the field overall, 50.5%. They were 46 of 91. The Mavs were 40 of 85. I mean, right there, that's your... I mean, when you make 6 more shots than the other team, that gives you an automatic... Well, if you're just looking at the twos, that's 12 points overall more. And the difference in the game was that the Mavericks... here's the crazy part. So the Mavericks, since they made 5 more threes, that gives them 5 more points out of those shots. So that gets them to -7 right there. Here's what's crazy. So the Suns didn't miss a free throw in this game. They were 18 of 18. The Mavs, if they had hit all of their free throws, all 25 of their free throws, they'd actually tied the game during regulation. Because they went 18 of 25. That's a really funny stat line right there. But Chris Paul, I mean, he didn't have the assists. What's crazy is Booker had 8 assists in this game. Paul only had 3. Seemed like they had Booker playing on ball a lot more, or Paul was getting off the ball quickly in this game. But Booker played on Brunson a lot, and he did a really good job defensively. Let's see, your other game last night, Miami versus Philly. Miami beat Philly by 14 points, and the first quarter wasn't really close. Miami dominated. Philly actually ended up going into halftime with the lead, though, because they came out and outscored Miami by 9 in the second quarter. And then Miami just owned the second half. Outscored them by 9 in the third, taking an 8-point lead in the fourth quarter. And then they outscored them by 6 in the fourth. No Embiid for the Sixers in this game, so that meant they started DeAndre Jordan. Tobias Harris had a really good night for himself. 37 minutes, he went 11 of 18 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, 4 or 5 from the line. He had 6 rebounds, an assist, a block, 27 points. The issue was when he was on the court, I mean, their defense was just awful. Their bench is what carried them in this game. Because, I mean, multiple starters. Sieves. Although I'm going to blame most of that on DeAndre Jordan, and you'll see in a minute. So Harris played 37 minutes, was -25. I mean, if you're looking at this and reading it on your own, you can see why DeAndre Jordan was a sieve. Danny Green started 26 minutes, 2 of 6 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3, 4 rebounds, an assist, 2 fouls, 5 points. He was -2 in his 26 minutes. Played really good defense. DeAndre Jordan in 17 minutes. He made both his shots, but somehow this man only grabbed 2 rebounds, considering, you know, he used to be the king of rebounding. I say the king. He used to be one of the most prolific volume rebounders in the league. He had 2 blocked shots, 2 turnovers, 2 fouls, 4 points. He was -22 in 17 minutes. They got blitzed while he was on the court. Tyrese Maxey, 35 minutes, 6 of 15 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3, 6 of 6 from the line, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 19 points. He was -25. James Harden, 35 minutes, 5 of 13 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, 4 of 4 from the line. He had 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 turnovers, 2 fouls, 16 points. He was -8 when he was on the court. But here's where the bench comes in for Philly. Paul Millsap played 6 minutes. He was -2. Georges Niang played 22 minutes. He missed all 7 of his shot attempts. They were all threes. Miami left him wide open, and apparently for good reason. He had an assist and 2 steals, 2 fouls. He somehow was +6 on the night. That's how big of an advantage apparently the Sixers bench had in their minutes against Miami's bench. Paul Reed, 13 minutes, 2 of 6 from the field. He had 9 rebounds. 5 of those were offensive rebounds. He had 4 assists, a steal, a block, a turnover, 5 fouls, 4 points. He was -3. I'm forgetting Charles Bassey, 5 minutes. Made his only shot, missed a free throw, 2 rebounds, 1 offensive, an assist. He was +5 with 2 points. Matisse Thybulle played 15 minutes, 1 of 3 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. Not a shock. He's never been the greatest scorer. 2 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block, 1 foul. He was -4. Shake Milton, 15 minutes, 1 of 3 from the field, misses only 3. 3-point shooting was abysmal for the Sixers in this game. Only Harden made more than 1 3, and it took 7 attempts to do it. Everyone else, maxed out at 1, if they even hit 1. Milton hit both his free throws. He had a rebound, an assist, turnover, personal foul, but was +7 with 4 points. Let's see here. Korkmaz, he played 10 minutes. He's, I guess, their most efficient player. 3 of 5 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, a rebound, a block, -2, 9 points. It was him or Harris from just a scoring standpoint. And then Isaiah Joe actually got 5 minutes late in this game, and he had zeros across the board for stats, but was +5. The only player who did not play in this game was rookie Jaden Springer, which is interesting. Looks like their best lineup of the night based on these numbers was probably, if I was going to guess based on score lines and minutes, I'm going to say it was Harden, Green, Niang, Bassey, and Milton, maybe? Or, well, actually, if it was late, man, I have no idea. This is just such a weird plus-minus to read. But Sixers got dominated by the Heat's defenses, which is what I expected. They only shot 43% from the field, 17.6% from 3. They were 6 of 34 from 3. They did make 90% of their free throws, though. 18 of 20 from the line. I think that definitely helped them cut some of the, or should I say, not get blown completely out. The Heat, on the other hand, had a great night, obviously, especially defensively. PJ Tucker played 28 minutes, 4 of 9, 2 of 4 from 3, 7 rebounds, 5 of them offensive. He had an assist, 1 turnover, 2 fouls, 10 points, +9. Very PJ Tucker game there. Jimmy Butler, 30 points, 5 of 16 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, 4 of 4 from the line, 9 rebounds, 2 offensive, 3 assists, 2 steals, 15 points. I guess I don't need to read every stat line, but I mean, some of these guys, Adebayo, 34 minutes. Butler was terrible offensively, but he was good on defense, good rebounding. But shooting the ball, Butler, abysmal. Adebayo, 34 minutes, 8 of 10 from the field, 8 of 8 from the free throw line, 12 rebounds, 3 of those offensive, 4 assists, 2 steals, a block, 3 turnovers, 2 fouls, 24 points. He was +26 on the game. Because of And what's crazy is because of injuries, they're without Kyle Lowry and it's crazy. They're without Kyle Lowry, they're without Tyler Hero, they're without Duncan Robinson, they're without 3 of their 5 best players right now. Oh no, Tyler Hero did play. He came off the bench, duh. But they're without 2 of their starters right now. Which actually, it seems like Robinson didn't play because coach's decision, not because of an injury. Unless there is an injury, it's just not listed. But anyway, Gabe Vincent started. And he and Max Struss have both been really good this year. Stepping up and filling bigger roles when they've had to. Gabe Vincent, 29 minutes. His shooting was down this game, 4 of 12, 1 of 7 from the field. From 3. Made his only free throw. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, 2 turnovers, 2 fouls, 10 points. He was +1. Max Struss in 33 minutes. Now, his shooting wasn't good either. 2 of 8 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3. No free throws. He had 5 rebounds, 1 turnover, 1 foul, 5 points. But he was +27. He played solid defense. Team very much played just fine when he was on the court. Caleb Martin, 21 minutes. He was 3 of 7 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3. Martin's another guy that they've developed who has just absolutely stepped up. 5 rebounds, 2 offensive, 1 assist, 6 points, +8. Their defense was outstanding because, look at a lot of these guys. Their offensive games weren't like stellar or anything. It's just the Sixers couldn't put the ball in the bucket to save their lives tonight. Dwayne Dedmon played 4 minutes, missed his only shot attempt. Had 5 fouls in 4 minutes. I guess his role on the team is late in the game or, quarters, halves, or whatever, just to foul the heck out of people. Interesting. Maybe late in the game, Miami just started fouling the Sixers to speed up finishing the game. I don't know. That's just a bizarre stat line. He had more fouls than minutes played. I wonder how many times that's happened in NBA history. Omer Ute, 7. Another guy who stepped up this year when, Adebayo was out injured. He was a guy that I was really kind of excited about. When he was a prospect, I just thought he needed to stay in college longer. Or I'm surprised it's taking him this long to pop because he's got size, he's got really good feel and skill. I think he's going to have a bigger role moving forward. But he played 5 minutes. He was 3 of 4 from the field. That was literally all he did, though, was score other than commit a foul. 6 points. He was -5 for the game. Tyler Hero, 29 minutes. Now, he was the best offensive player for Miami other than Bam. 9 of 17 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3, 3 of 3 from the line. He had 1 offensive rebound, 7 assists, no turnovers, no fouls, 25 points, was +4. And then Victor Oladipo in 27 minutes, 2 of 8 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, 1 of 2 from the line, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, a foul, a turnover, a block, a turnover, 2 fouls, 5 points. He was -1. It seems like their best lineup was Tucker, Adebayo, Struss, Caleb Martin, and Tyler Hero. But it seems like Tyler Hero was also on the court for one of their worst stretches of the night. And then, of course, Udonis Haslem, of course he didn't play. He's a coach that they have as a player on the roster. Markieff Morris didn't play. Highsmith didn't play. And Duncan Robinson didn't play. Their offense, once again, not great. 40 of 92, 33.5% shooting from the field, 25% from 3. Barely better than Philly. They just took 2 more threes, and they made 3 more of them. And they were 17 of 18 from the line, 94.4%. So they were even more efficient than the ridiculous efficient Sixers from the line. This was a defensive game and the Heat's defense was just more brutal, basically. So, right now, as it stands, your first round series, the Heat are up 1-0 on the Sixers. Joel Embiid will not be playing until at least Game 3 in this series because of an injury. So, I'm expecting the Heat to win Game 2 as well. Because I would imagine both teams will be better offensively in Game 2. And if so, it depends on like how much better they're going to be. The Pelicans, they lost in the first round. I'm an idiot. Let's for the next. It's because I was thinking Drew Holiday. The Bucks are up 1-0 on the Celtics. The Suns, of course, took a 1-0 lead on the Mavs last night, and the Warriors are up 1-0 on the Grizzlies. Games 2 in Grizzlies, Warriors, and Bucks, Celtics will be tonight. Let's see some of the headlines for the playoffs here. Heat takeover. Kid, Luka dominant. Need others to join the party. And that's kind of true. I mean, Luka did all you could in that game last night. Draymond never going to change style of play. He also had a tweet about, he'd been ejected for less. So Draymond having some fun. Talked yesterday about Smart having a quad issue that's going to make him questionable for Game 2. Grizzlies not phased by Game 1 loss. Expect long series. I hope so. Giannis gets creative. Yeah, I talked about that. And then an NBA mock draft there. So, Zach O's got an article out. I'll have to read that later. So, let's hit some other news, and then I'll talk about my NBA awards, like who I would put for stuff or for awards and stuff. Man, did the Jets win the draft? Let's check out the NFL news. Cardinals wide receiver Hopkins. We talked about that. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to talk about, or actually, I'll read through the rest of this and I'll get into the Hopkins stuff. NFL. Oh, this also came out yesterday after my show, or maybe during it, but after I'd moved on from my news segment. Hugh Jackson's tanking claims from earlier this offseason were found unsubstantiated by the NFL. It doesn't shock me that, it's not necessarily that I trust the NFL, but I also trust Hugh Jackson less. Because he's a liar, he's an excuse maker, he does not take any fault or blame for anything. He's the proto Brian Flores, is the way I would see it, or the way I see it. He had made claims, or a lawyer who was associating with him when the Flores suit started. This lawyer, she put out a tweet to Brian Flores or to someone, and it went kind of viral, talking about how the Browns had a scheme that basically incentivized front office and I believe coaches for losses during that really bad run of where they were losing, where they lost 31 games over 2 seasons. Over Hugh Jackson's first 2 seasons. But here's the other thing. I still haven't found where that was illegal. Because you could say, well, there's money involved, so it's game fixing. Well, not really, is the way I would put it. They're not betting on games. They're not gambling. But they're trying to build a championship team, and they decided to tank in order, to get those players, to get high picks, to get the best players possible at the cheapest. Someone would have to break down how it was illegal, but also, Hugh Jackson. Hugh Jackson is a drama factory, and I don't know. The guy can't keep his mouth shut. The guy, he writes checks with his mouth and his bank account can't cash. Basically, I don't have any respect for him at this point. Something interesting happened yesterday. The Chiefs and Ravens tendered veterans Melvin Ingram and Justin Houston with unrestricted free agent tenders. Now, what this does, and this is rarely used, the last time it was used was by the Giants back in 2020. And I don't even remember this or reading about this when it happened. So what these UFA tenders do is oh goodness. What these UFA tenders do is up until July 22nd or the first day of training camp, whichever comes first by the wording of the rule. If a player, or if that player who has been tendered is signed by another team, it counts towards the compensatory pick formula. Because usually, I think once you get to June 1st, once you get past June 1st, players don't count towards that anymore. If this does not happen, the team has exclusive rights to that free agent at a contract at a maximum of 110% over their previous year's salary. So for Melvin Ingram, that would be like $4.4 million this year. For Houston, it's like just short of $1.2 million. It's really interesting because it reminds me of kind of like a restricted free agent tender with a caveat. Because, like, it doesn't seem like the team has the ability to match any offer that the player gets beforehand. I mean, maybe they could, but the player's not forced to accept it if the team matches it, I guess. It's really interesting. Oh, and A.J. Brown had a in a press conference with the Eagles, or for the Eagles yesterday, talked about how he wasn't a regular season guy. He cares about the postseason, cares about winning, and how he hadn't won anything since high school. As part of a longer quote. And that was just kind of interesting because he's coming off like his worst season so far as a pro after his third year in the league. Touchdown production was fairly decent, I think, considering he played less games. Well, no, I think he only had like 5 touchdowns. He played 13 games, fewest in his career so far. When he did play, though, his effectiveness was just as good. In some ways, I think it was actually better last year. But just an interesting quote. Said quarterback Jalen Hurts, who is a friend of his words, lobbied for the Eagles to trade for him. So Adrian Peterson apparently has agreed to counseling after that arrest that I talked about. It's been a month or a couple months since that happened. Interesting. For his lawyer, talked about that yesterday. Yep, talked about all this stuff. So we're gonna get into this Hopkins story Then we'll get to my NBA awards because I'm not going to have like a super long show this morning. At least that is not my plan. Plan to not keep you here much more than 30 more minutes, hopefully. So real quick, so DeAndre Hopkins had a suspension. Here's the weird timing or the weird thing about his positive test. As I was reading things last night, so he tested positive back in November while he was injured. Not long after he was injured, he then had tests in December and January, or actually, he might not have even been injured yet when the November test came in. I'm trying to remember now. I don't think he was injured. He might not have been injured when the November test happened, but anyway, he tested positive in November. His December and January tests were totally clean. He's never tested positive for PEDs before in his life. And this is a bigger thing in the mixed martial arts world, but there have been confirmed there have been confirmed screwy positive tests in MMA and some other sports because some players use certain skin creams. And there's some like medically approved like skincare stuff for different conditions or whatever, and just for lotions in general that do not have any effect on your physical performance or anything, but say you use that every day and then they take a blood sample going through your skin there. Well, guess what? Residue ends up on the edge of that, or on that needle, and going in with some of that fluid during the testing phase, or when they do this, whatever skin cream or whatever stuff you had used. And that can trigger a positive test, and it has nothing to do with you taking steroids. It has nothing to do with you taking any performance enhancers. But it's basically a contaminated sample. It can also show up in, and I believe it can also show up in urine tests just because, this stuff absorbs and then ends up in your, but it's not a performance enhancing drug in any way, shape, or form. It's happened to a UFC fighter. I want to say it might have been before I started doing my show last year. I almost want to say I talked about it on the show, but it might have been before that. But it was really interesting because it's happened to multiple athletes. And so, this is another thing about these tests. It's not like they can tell exactly what pill you took or what, steroids you were taking. So there's certain metabolites in these things, or protein chains, whatever, that can show up. And usually what causes these tests is there's a normal range they have set, and if you're over that range or outside that range by a certain amount, it depends on the substance or the metabolite, what have you, and sometimes the sport has different guidelines, whatever. If it's just slightly out of balance or slightly out of range, you'll get hit. It seems weird that he's being suspended now. If this happened back in November, why the suspension didn't happen as soon as they knew? Because I'm guaranteeing you they're not just now figuring this out. 6 months later, that doesn't make any sense. He should have been immediately suspended if it, I mean, there's some, this just seems fishy, and the fact that he never had a positive test before, he tested negative in December and January. If they were not notified at the time, that means he might have, like, because what this looks like to me is, oh, he got away with the November test, or he probably would have thought, I got away with the November test. If he was actually doing something wrong, he would have kept doing it. This seems really weird. Because I did when this whole thing with, because the thing I referenced earlier, the UFC fighter, there is a metabolite in a lot of skin creams and sunscreens that had that banned metabolite in it. So, if we're talking, I mean, a lot of people use sunscreen. I mean, pretty much everyone uses sunscreen at some point during the year. I'd imagine people in Arizona are using sunscreen most of the year. Not saying that's what happened with DeAndre Hopkins. From what I understand, it's not the same metabolite, or at least I would imagine it's not. But this was a big thing, like, a couple years ago. So I was looking into it, and it's like, it seems like the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, they don't actually listen to the science from the actual experts when it comes to their determinations of what should be banned and what parameters, like, they don't take enough stuff into consideration. The USADA, the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, has been, because it was WADA that messed up this one guy's test. USADA, the governing board for anti-doping in the U.S., which is really strict, don't get me wrong, but they they care about proper process and being accurate, apparently more so than WADA does. So they actually appealed the WADA or the ruling against this guy on behalf of him because of WADA's outdated and inaccurate guidelines, basically. Man, my phone's blowing up at the moment. So, something just is off. I think DeAndre Hopkins' PED suspension, I'm calling bunk on it. I think it's incorrect. It just doesn't make any sense. All the parameters around it, the timing of the announcement compared to the timing of the tests, it just doesn't make sense. Like, if he had, in the moment, unless he knew and a bunch of people knew back in November about the positive test, and he changed his habits to not fail the December and January test, but the NFL didn't say anything and nothing was done about it yet. That just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would it take 6 months? And if you know that he was negative on his December and January tests already as well, do we not do the results in the middle of the season? Do we only go over them after the season? Because that seems unsafe too. Because if someone is cheating during the season, this is weird. Because I feel like if Hopkins and his camp knew about the positive test to begin with, like a while ago, you'd think they would have gotten ahead of it in the media too. But that's not what happened here. This just seems weird to me. So with that being said, we're going to transition. I'm going to do my NBA awards. I don't have my own awards ballot. And I'm not going to go through everyone's stats or whatever, because I just kind of want this to be quick and talk about some guys who I felt merited big mention this year. We'll do the teams second. I'm going to do the individual awards first. For me, an MVP is a regular season award. Nikola Jokic is the MVP. He lifted a injury destroyed roster to the 6th seed. Like, he kept them out of the play-in, which is super impressive. And he was just incredible this year. He has improved again defensively. He's a great communicator on defense, but he's really good at just being in the right place at the right time. He's a beast of a rebounder. I believe he led the league in rebounding. He fell just a little bit short of 14 rebounds a game, which was like, I think he had like just over 2 rebounds more than both Embiid and Giannis a game rebounding. His scoring was a few points short scoring. I think he was like 27.5 points a game, or 28 points a game, while Embiid and Giannis were over 30. But his assist numbers were also much higher. I mean, he created a new club. It was, what was it? I think it was like the 2,000, 1,500 club. Like, no one's ever had as many points, rebounds, and assists. Like, he's never hit all of these thresholds at the same time in the same season. It's ridiculous what he did this year. While playing, once again, really good defense, being super efficient from the floor, except for like his 3-point shooting. I mean, he's a below average percentage-wise 3-point shooter, but... And actually, I believe Embiid shot a higher percentage from 3 this year. Like, what Embiid has turned himself into is insane. Like, he has... I mean, this guy's taking step-back threes for the win. Or to tie games in clutch time. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. And Embiid played great defense, although I would say not as good a defense as he usually does. But, I mean, he has such a big offensive burden. He was still one of the best defensive players in the league. And Giannis, to me, if I'm picking someone for a must-win game, like, Giannis is my guy. Giannis is the number 1 pick in a fantasy draft of the entire league. Like, to me, he's the guy. But over this regular season, Jokic was the guy. He was the MVP. And then Giannis is number 2 for me, and then it's Embiid. Any argument you can use to downplay Giannis, you would also be downplaying Embiid. Same if you're using an argument about stats or whatever, or this or that, advanced metrics, like to downplaying that, to downplay Jokic, you'd also be downplaying Embiid. Because at this point, most of the advanced stats, Jokic is 1, or Giannis, and then it's Embiid. Like, they're usually, Jokic is number 1, usually Giannis is number 2, usually Embiid's number 3. I think the cases are closer for Giannis and Embiid, but I'm going with Giannis over Embiid there. Those are my top 3. If I was going to extend it to a top 5, I'd probably put Luka 4th, and I'd put Ja Morant 5th, just personally. I think Ja had a great season. I think he would... The tough thing is he missed some games early in the season, and then he missed games down the stretch. I wish he played a few more games. But, I mean, Ja was awesome this year. And then I'm going to do, let's see, from MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. This one was a crapshoot. And what I mean is, I shouldn't say crapshoot. Like, this was just a dart throw. There were so many good players, but I think there was a little bit of Gobert. There's definitely was Gobert fatigue this year. And there is a point of, like, for a lot of people, that teams aren't going as hard every possession against Utah during the regular season like they do in the playoffs. And I think some of the playoff stuff has really hurt Gobert. But there are a lot of great players. Jaren Jackson Jr. Got consideration from a lot of people. Marcus Smart, of course, actually won the award. Jokic won the MVP award this year. But Smart is not my defensive player of the year. My final three came down to Jaren Jackson, Bam Adebayo, and Michael Bridges of the Suns. And I went with Bam Adebayo by a hair over Jackson and Bridges. It was Adebayo, Jackson, and then Bridges for me. If I'm extending it 2 more spots, I'd put Gobert 4 and Draymond 5. I would have loved to put Draymond as Defensive Player of the Year because I think he was the best defensive player in the league this year. The problem is he only played 50-something games. I mean, it's hard for me to give you an award for the full season when you miss, 20. Like, it's hard for me when you miss 20 games, period. When you're getting over 25 games missed, that's just a bit of a... it's a stretch for me. Spoiler alert, Dre did make my all-defensive team. But that was my top 5. Bam's the just scariest switch defender in the league, basically, at this point. Him and Draymond. But his IQ's great. He's a really good rim protector. He allows the Heat to do whatever they want defensively. They are able to do really creative defensive schemes because of how talented, how intelligent, athletic Bam Adebayo is. He's just incredible. So he was my defensive player of the year. Jaren Jackson was really close because he was doing a lot of the same stuff for the Grizzlies. And his shot blocking, Jackson's shot blocking this year and rim protection was just insane. And Robert Williams came close. It's just that he really only did it for like half the season. Then he got hurt towards the end of the season. Williams was close for me because he helped transform the Celtics defense by really doing a Bam Adebayo impersonation in some regards. Although in his own way, because he and Bam have some differences in how they go about things. Although very similar builds. Or very similar, height, length, stuff like that. Moving on to most improved player, Ja Morant won the award. And it's hard to argue against that because he made such a big... he's made such big leaps between years 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. I mean, there are people talking about him being a borderline MVP candidate during the middle part of the season. Coming out of the All-Star break, I mean, he was a monster this year. So I get why he won. I usually try to go with a... He almost feels like he started off too high profile to win it, but he kind of reminds me of Giannis after when Giannis made his leap to MVP level play. He was already playing great, and then it was just insane. The leap he made that put him in All-NBA discussion. So, and most improved is so nebulous. Most improved player is the toughest award, just period. Because improvement is relative. What's harder, making the leap from, fringe all-star, which Ja was and I say fringe because, he's in that range where you could argue for someone else, to MVP candidate. Because that's the leap he made from year 2 to year 3. That's a massive leap. That is a massive leap. Because it's hard enough just to go from, all-star, top 30 player to All NBA, top 15 player, let alone going from, and I mean like a fringe all-star, so maybe you're really just one of the top 50 players in the league, to like, getting into that top 15 discussion. And he just skipped all of that. He went from maybe one of the top 30 players in the league to maybe one of the top 5, at least during the regular season, when we come to regular season stuff. Problem is, Morant missed a bunch of games, but I think that matters a little less for most improved. He didn't miss as many as Draymond, if memory serves me correctly. And Memphis played extremely well without Morant. But they didn't have as high of a ceiling. They just played insane defense. Got a little bit lucky with opponent shooting percentages. Like, opponents just shot really bad, which some of that is definitely due to your level of defensive prowess, but also, like, sometimes you just get lucky and teams aren't shooting well. And you just happen to catch people during, a slump or on a bad night over and over again. Like, that can happen. But some of that was the Grizzlies exacerbating that because of their defense. And when Morant isn't on the court, to be fair, like, we usually have a better defender on the court in his stead. So that improves our defense. And that's not a knock at Morant. Morant, obviously, his style of play tips games more in our favor. Yeah, the defense maybe is a little less, but our offense gets supercharged. And, I mean, Morant lives for the clutch moments. He lives for the spotlight. And he delivers time and time again. Just like he did down the stretch in the Nugget series. I mean, not the Nugget series, sorry. I mean, in the Timberwolves series. Just like he did in the Timberwolves series. So, I would stick with John Morant as most improved. However, some other guys who absolutely were worthy, Darius Garland would have probably won the award for me otherwise. He made a really big leap this year. Desmond Bane in year 2 made a huge leap. Although you kind of expect it with second-year players, but usually that's higher drafted guys. This guy was drafted 30th overall in the 2020 draft. And he played pretty good as a rookie, but he didn't... I mean, he shot well, he defended pretty well. Like, he was a good role player, but he didn't even average 10 points a game. This guy averaged over 18 points a game this year, or around 18 points a game this year. He became at times our best offensive player while John Morant was out, and Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks missed a lot of the season with injury. Like, Bane became just this dynamic, roving shooter scorer, coming off of screens, catching things on the move, played on the ball a lot more. He wasn't super efficient, but he did improve his pick and roll efficiency slightly while taking on a pick and roll burden he had never had before. And I think he'll improve in that regard going into year 3. So I've got 2 Grizzlies there. That's one of the reasons we are so good, or why we were the second team in the Western Conference this year. We had 2 guys make massive leaps. A bunch of guys in the roster played or made improvements or played above their pay grade. So that would be the top 3. After that, some other guys worthy of consideration. DeJounte Murray of the Spurs, very much deserves some look. I mean, he was really good last year, but I mean, he was great this season. Ooh, sorry. Woke up with a little bit of a... It's not really heartburn because it didn't burn, but just a rumbly stomach. I'm trying to think of everything, or a bunch of players off the top of my head here. Because to me, those are like the easy top 4. Oh, I'm sorry. And Tyrese Maxey which another one of these guys, year 2 jump, you kind of expected, but Maxey had a huge leap. And he had some games, he had some flashes as a rookie, but Maxey, before they traded for Harden, was already looking like a bona fide number 2. There have been times, even since Harden's been there, Maxey's been more consistent. And a lot of nights is the better player. And he's a dog defensively. Love Tyrese Maxey. Though that's an easy kind of top 5 for me. Some other guys who deserve mention would be, I feel like Lonzo Ball, if he hadn't gotten hurt, Lonzo Ball would have been in this discussion. I feel like Michael Bridges actually took another jump this season. Worthy of note. Tyler Hero was really great last year. Tyler Hero was easily the 6th man of the year, and we're about to get to that. And I think he severely improved again this season. Throw him in to the most improved conversation. I think Gabe Vincent's like, I don't think this is a rookie year. You could throw Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin. Dude, there's so many. It would take a while to just go around through everybody, but those guys were definitely my top guys. Oh, Fred VanVleet is another guy. He was already really good. He took a huge jump this year. Anthony Simons finally popped this year. Man, there's just so many guys you can talk about. But I think I've talked about the guys that I need to. With that being said, 6th man of the year, Tyler Hero, runaway 6th man of the year, like no question, no doubt. He's the guy. And it's really hard to even make a case. It's hard to make a case for just about anyone else this year. I think the best cases outside of that would be Cam Johnson for the Suns. Definitely deserves mention. I think Bones Highland deserves mention, like in that, tier below. Tyus Jones from Memphis, I believe, also deserves mention just because. And he had a stretch where he stepped up when Morant was hurt and started and was really good. He didn't start most of the team's games. He was a bench player for the vast majority of the season, but that's kind of what your 6th man's supposed to do. He's supposed to be a starter level player, so. Oh, my leg. Trying to wing around the league in my head again for the good, or for, the top teams. I'm pretty sure Kevin Love came off the bench this year, and he was really solid doing that. He probably deserved... Yeah, he was. So he probably deserves some consideration there for 6th man of the year. But, it's pretty much impossible to talk about anyone else, like, seriously in the discussion because of just how great Tyler Hero was. He basically was like... he's kind of like Manu Ginobili, except kind of supercharged in a way. So, I'm trying to think. Rookie of the Year. This was a really hard one. Scotty Barnes ended up winning Rookie of the Year, and I guess it came down to the Raptors' record to some degree. This was close because, it was like Barnes, Mobley, and Cunningham. And Cunningham made a great late push. I still had him third. I had Evan Mobley over Scotty Barnes. I get Barnes maybe had some more playmaking duties, did a little more scoring with the ball in his hands, but I just felt like Evan Mobley's defense was so valuable, which Barnes' was great defensively. I just feel like Evan Mobley was the guy, and he was the guy the entire season. Like, Barnes got off to a really quick start and then kind of cooled and then was good the rest of the year. Mobley, to me, was the same guy the entire season. And he molded his game. He and Barnes both molded their games to what the team needed. Like, they were both very chameleon players. Like, splitting hairs between the two was really hard. And then with Cunningham coming up late in the season, like, it was like, Cunningham's legit, and he's probably going to end up the best player out of all these guys long term, like most people expected, but we'll see. I mean, Mobley's awesome, and Mobley's still developing too. We'll see. I mean, Barnes is good. And I'll say this, I'm not worried about Jalen Suggs yet. He was a rookie guard in the NBA. Sometimes it takes a year to pop. Look at Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony really was rough his rookie year, and he looks awesome now. So I'm not worried about Jalen Suggs yet. He wouldn't be the first, like, rookie guard. Like, Darius Garland was really rough his rookie year. Like, I mean, he wasn't great. Look at him now. I mean, a bunch of rookie guards, like, struggle. DeAndre Fox struggled. Lonzo Ball, in a lot of ways, struggled. It's not over. If we're going past those top three, Franz Wagner deserves credit just for being, and he's just a step behind him, but he was really good this year on Orlando. Like, he was arguably the most impactful player for winning that played for the Magic this year. His scoring ability, there's not, like, Wagner doesn't have a weakness really in his game. And he's got great feel, great basketball IQ. He can be the ball handler in the pick and roll. He can be the screen setter. He can roll to the rim. He's dangerous out of the short roll. He can pop. He can shoot off the catch. He can catch the ball off movement. I think that's going to be something that becomes a big part of his game as he develops. Like, this guy is he's the perfect complementary player to having a guy like Cole Anthony running the show. Really love Wagner. And if we're going to go with a fifth player, Josh Giddey missed a lot of time down the stretch, but at his best this season, Giddey was awesome. So I'm going to put him fifth in the voting. We'll get to the all-rookie stuff and talk more about that. But look, I don't care who you had out of the top three candidates. If you voted for them number one, like I said, Mobley was my guy. If you've got Cunningham or Barnes, I'm not gonna say that's wrong. Because it was so close, and there's different ways you can define it. Because Cunningham was lifting a heavy burden on a bad team. But Mobley and Barnes were playing big, important, impactful roles for winning teams, and were all, I mean, elite in their roles. So I just kind of lean towards that, rewarding their ability to be part of successful teams this season. So I'm trying to think. Individual. Coach of the year. I tell you what, this one was tough for me because it came down to two guys. It came down to Monty Williams and Taylor Jenkins. And selfishly, I want to give Taylor Jenkins the award because of how young that team is and how good it was. But the Suns were really dominant. And there's a third coach. Um, hopefully, I'm getting his name right. I believe it's Ime Udoka, the coach for the Celtics. The adjustments he made that have turned the Celtics into a dominant defensive team. Bravo. So he was also in on this one. But with all the injuries the Grizzlies had this year, and Spoelstra with the Heat and the injuries they had also deserves mention here. Coach of the Year is a really tough one. The Suns were just so good. You just really want to reward that, and I'm pretty sure Monty won the Coach of the Year award. But the homer in me it's hard to not give it to Jenkins. I mean, Morant missed time. Brooks missed a lot of the year. We got the healthiest season we've ever gotten from Jaren Jackson, but we had injuries on the wings. Zaire Williams, our rookie, who I'll talk to in a minute, he played really well. He was having to start some games this year and play, 20, 25 plus minutes for multiple game stretches and held up. He wasn't some kind of force of nature. He wasn't as impactful as, say, Franz Wagner, but he was solid. He did his job. He did a solid job playing his role. And for a rookie who was pretty raw, he played better this year for the Grizzlies than he did his 1 year at Stanford, in my opinion. He had a bigger role at Stanford, but Williams showed improvement across the board in his game. It just kind of makes me want to lean toward it makes me lean towards Jenkins because the Suns didn't change really anything this offseason. For the most part, they just rolled everything back. And the Grizzlies did too. The difference is there's just so many more young players rather than veterans. The development job Jenkins is doing is incredible. So, if you had either of those two guys, I think most people voted Monty, and that's totally understandable. There's a little bit of homer in me. I think that's fighting for me to give it to Taylor Jenkins, but I'm trying to fight that element in me. Almost makes me want to say, you know what, Ime Udoka of the Celtics, or Eric Spoelstra. But if you think it's any of those guys, And, oh my goodness, how am I blanking on who's coaching the Cavs right now? Isn't it, is it JB Bickerstaff that's coaching the Cavs right now? I'm trying to remember who the Cavs coach is. He did an excellent job this year, as did Chris Finch with the Timberwolves. And once again, Michael Malone doing a great job. The injuries he dealt with this year. Their second and third best players, Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Murray missed the whole season. Michael Porter Jr. missed pretty much the whole season. And they still were the 6th seed. Kudos to him. And to be honest, I think Tyronn Lue had an awesome season in his own right as a coach. This, in my opinion, this is the most impressive job he's done his entire career. He got the Clippers to the play-in with Paul George missing half the season or something like that, or more, and Kawhi Leonard out the entire year. For most of the season, your top 3 players were Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, and Luke Kennard. And you made a big in-season trade. You were able to get Norm Powell and Robert Covington, but Norm Powell then got hurt and missed. He had gotten hurt. He missed a decent chunk of the second half of the season after them trading for him. Tyronn Lue, great job this season. Here I am going to go mention every team in the freaking league. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't the Spurs almost make the play-in? Because it was like the Timberwolves, the Pelicans, the Clippers. Well, actually, it was the Timberwolves, the... Wow, am I blanking right now? The Timberwolves, the Clippers, the Pelicans. Who was the other team in the West play-in? I'm feeling really dumb right now. Was it the Spurs? Was the Spurs? Were the Spurs the fourth team? Because, yeah, I think it was the Spurs. Pop did another pretty good job this year. Considering, I think a lot of people thought that team might be right down there with the Rockets and the Thunder. Although, the Rockets, or is that where Bickerstaff is? Is he with the Rockets? I'm trying to remember who the Rockets and Cavs coaches are. The Rockets had some really good, or had two really great stretches with their, roster. So, kudos to them. And Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, looks like they nailed this. The Green down the stretch, like post All-Star break, and really like the last 2 months of the season, Green finally looked like he was figuring some things out. After a very, rookie feeling things out start. So those are some people worth noting for Coach of the Year. But my Coach of the Year is Taylor Jenkins. I'm a little biased, I guess, but can you blame me? Did I miss any individual awards? I did. MVP, Rookie Player, or Rookie of the Year, Most Improved, Sorry, I'm checking for a text from, Sorry, I need to check a text from someone real quick. Nope, don't have one. Okay. So, yeah, I got all the individual awards. So then, let's move to the teams. So we got All NBA, All Defense, All Rookie. We're going to start with the All Rookie team. So the All Rookie team, obviously my top, or all five, the five guys I mentioned for Rookie of the Year are going to make the first team for All Rookie. Well, I mentioned Giddey, but, honestly, I don't think outside of the three guys that I was considering for number one and Franz Wagner, anybody else really qualified to even be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. So the first four spots are easy. It's easy, to have Mobley, Barnes, Cunningham, Wagner. Those four, very easy. The last first team spot is really tough for All Rookie. Man, where are people? That's two straight people flying down the street. You've got Josh Giddey, who, before picking up that injury midseason, he was on a tear early in 2022, or early at the turn of the year. And he was a triple-double machine this year. I really want to give him the fifth spot. The two biggest, the two guys that are going to fight him the most for that are Jalen Green, who had a big role but struggled for a lot of the year, and Herb Jones. And if we want to talk about a guy impacting winning, Herb Jones has been, he basically earned a starting role. He basically gave them no choice but to start him. He was their best perimeter defender. And he was one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Once again, there's an argument to be made that he could have been in play for, I could see some people dark horse defensive player of the year. Might end up on my all defense teams. Just stick with me here and you'll find out. Herb played great defense. He was a solid role player. He didn't average 10 points a game. He was kind of like Desmond Bane last year, except way better defense, basically. His shooting number's not quite as good as Bane's, but still, Herb, awesome role player. And because of team success, you almost want to put him on first team all-rookie. Because on a worse team, he might have had a bigger offensive burden. He might have been allowed to score more points. So it really just comes down to, do you value role and degree of difficulty? Do you value usage on a bad and having to carry the weight on a bad team, or do you value the positive contribution in maybe a smaller, more defined role for a more successful team? Because, the Pelicans end up advancing out of the play-in. They made the playoffs. And they gave the Suns a really tough first-round series. Part of that because Devin Booker got hurt. But they beat the Suns, I think, before Booker got hurt. They beat them in Game 1. This is a regular season thing, but he helped get the Pelicans to the play-in. I really want to give Herb Jones... I'm going to give Herb Jones that 5th first-team spot. Which means your second team is Josh Giddey, Jalen Green, Ayu Dosunmu, who played a critical role for a stretch of the season when the Bulls were really depleted with injuries and was playing really well. He cooled off a bit towards the end of the season, but Dosunmu earned a spot. And then here we have another tough spot where you got a number of guys who deserve consideration for these last two spots. Chris Duarte for the Pacers. He started off really hot. He kind of cooled off and played more like a normal role player throughout the season, but Duarte was really good. Alperen Şengün of Houston was really good. Zaire Williams playing a important role as a rotational wing and starting some this season for the Grizzlies during a stretch where we were depleted from injuries and helping us stay helping us continue to win despite those injuries. I'm going to cheat here, and I'm going to get some help. Sorry, I'm stealing the cheat sheet. Now, you know what? I'm not sorry. I don't care. Oh, so we ended up with the same first team because he put Herb on the first team, and then he had Green. Oh yeah, I almost forgot he was a rookie because he was so good. So I'll say this: if we're gonna talk players who were successful on and played bigger roles, the last two spots have to go to Alperen Şengün and Bones Highland. And as much as I want to put Zaire Williams on the team, and I'd have to put him over Şengün, I felt like Şengün was just too good. And then Bones Highland was better and had more responsibilities, especially as the season wore on. As the Grizzlies got healthy, Zaire Williams started playing less and a smaller role, especially once Dylan Brooks was back. Bones Highland continued to play a bigger and bigger role. Eventually, basically became like their sixth, seventh man, and developed a really good partnership. So the second team, Giddey, Green, Desomu, Şengün, and Highland, with the hardest cuts being, or the hardest exclusions being Zaire Williams, Chris Duarte, I'm blanking on his name. Kuminga from the Warriors, because he was in and out of the rotation, but he had some real pop moments and played an important role while the Warriors were dealing with some injuries. And there's one other guy I'm trying to remember, once again off the top of my head, and I'm failing. And I'm sorry for that. I guess I'll have to. Guess I'll just have to move on because I can't think of his name. Anyway, so that was all rookie. Just as a recap, Mobley, Mobley, Barnes, Cunningham, Wagner, Herb Jones for the first team. Second team would be Josh Giddey, Jalen Green, Ayo Dosunmu, Alfred Şengün, and Bones Highland. Honestly, that Cunningham, Mobley, Barnes, Wagner, Jones lineup, I think could be the starting lineup for a playoff team right now. That would be crazy. I mean, the defensive versatility between all five of those guys, because Cunningham's a good defender. Wagner's solid. Jones, Barnes, and Mobley are all great. And then you'd have four really versatile offensive players. And then Jones, who can handle, fifth, because he's doing it for his team, fifth option duty. Actually, if you took the second team, that'd be a dirty team. Obviously not realistic, but I digress. So so we'll do all defense, then we'll finish with all NBA. So the all defense team. This was because there's so many people. And if we're sticking, I think we have to stick to positions, right? I'm going to check. I'm not using this to cheat to decide on players or players. This is just for knowing what the structure for the voting is. Well, let's pull this up. Okay, so this year's team, or no, that was, have they not announced the all-defense team for this year? Oh, they probably haven't yet. They haven't announced all the individual awards, though, haven't they? Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, I'm just going to look at the 2021 for oh my God, this is not helping because that's not laid out in a way that makes any sense. Okay. Well, Simmons was a guard, so I'm going to say that that's... And Adebayo you can run as a forward. So I'm guessing... Or it looks like 2 backcourt, 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center. Yeah. Okay. So, all defensive team. Man, this is going to be tough this year. Because I'm going to try and jigger these guys to where I get all the guys I want on the teams. So first team center for me is easy because he's my defensive player of the year. That's Bam Adebayo. The forward, or one forward, has to be Draymond Green because if he'd play more games, Draymond Green would be my defensive player of the year. But he's got enough games to be on the first team. Other forward spot is going to be Jaren Jackson Jr., who's also, because he plays power forward. He plays some center, but he plays a lot of power forward for the Grizzlies. I think he plays pretty much half or most of his minutes at power forward. So there's those guys. And then the guards are Marcus Smart, and because I'm pretty sure he's listed as a guard forward, Michael Bridges goes on the first team. And that one's simple. Second team gets a little harder. Gobert's the center, like he has to be. Which that's the thing, Adebayo can also be forward center, so like however you want to jigger him and Jackson. But Gobert's the center for second team defense. I'm putting Giannis there. I want to say his numbers were a little, or his ratings were a little down this year, but Giannis is one of the most impactful defensive players of the league. I can't not have him. Like, he's one of the 10 best defenders in the league, so I'm putting him there. Because, I mean, usually he'd be, like, for me, he'd usually be, first team defense, so. Man, this one's tough. Because there's a lot of players you want to give credit. There's part of me that wants to throw Evan Mobley on there, but I don't know if he's one of the 10 best defensive players in the league yet. But Jarrett Allen also deserves mention at center. Like, he was awesome this year too. Like I said, I kind of want to put Herb Jones on there. Like, no joke. But all right, here we go. So, second team, Gobert, Antetokounmpo. I'm putting Jason Tatum on second team defense. He was awesome. I really want to fit Robert Williams, but there's just not enough freaking spots for front court guys. Do I dare take him off for Giannis? Man, I don't know. Or do I put him over Tatum? Nah, I just feel like Tatum was taking away the top defensive option a little more, or offensive option more often than Williams on the perimeter. And I mean, so was Jaylen Brown. The Celtics defense, especially over the second half of the season, I almost want to just put Brown and Tatum on the second team defense, but Thibel's issue is minutes to a degree. Man, I don't know. Let me try and figure out what players are listed as so I can try and manipulate this as best I can. Let's see here. Okay, let's see what these criteria or who qualifies for what positions. This might take me forever to sort through. Maybe I don't do that. Okay. So second team. You know, if I dropped Green to the second team because of the games, move Gobert to center on the first team, I could. Well, that doesn't help me. Okay, so here's my second team. I'm just gonna go for it. Because part of me kind of wants to try and work Joel Embiid in here, but I'm not going to. So here's the final. First team defense, all defense: Marcus Smart, Michael Bridges, Draymond Green, Jaren Jackson, Bam Adebayo. Second team. I'm going to reward Fred VanVleet for being so stinking good this year on one of the best defensive teams in the league in the Raptors. And I'm going to go with Matisse Thybulle because on a permanent basis, that guy just creates so much havoc and so many steals and blocks. And then Tatum, Giannis, and Gobert. And that's my defensive first, second teams. The hardest cuts off of this were Drew Holiday, Herb Jones, Joel Embiid, Jaylen Brown, DeAndre Ayton deserves consideration. Jimmy Butler deserves consideration as well, and Robert Williams. So that one was tough. And then, honestly, for me, All NBA is a bit easier. Let me go up and check the qualifications again. Let's see. Some people might think I'm crazy for having Tatum in the top or on the second team for all defense. I don't care. So, for me, this is how all NBA is going to shake out. And this one's going to be controversial for some people. And once again, I don't care. My first team is the guards are John Morant and Luka Doncic. They were the two best backcourt players in the league this year, in my opinion, for the length of the season. They earned those spots. Jason Tatum and Giannis Antetokounmpo, easily the two first-team forwards for me. Tatum was excellent defensively. I don't care that his offensive numbers weren't the same in total as LeBron James. He played far more games, and his team was, in my opinion, the best team in the East this year. Even though the Heat got the number one seed, the Celtics were really stinking good, and for the last 2/3 of the season, they were arguably the most dominant team in the NBA. It was them and the Suns. And actually, most statistics would tell you the Celtics were better, especially against the better teams, the best teams in the league. And then the center for the first team is Jokic, my MVP. Second team, that is going to be Steph Curry and Devin Booker. Booker would get and Morant was the decision between for first team because to me Luka had to make it. And I just thought Morant was better. I feel like the Suns, I feel like Booker's supporting cast is better, just overall. So, and I thought Morant's output was better this year. Just simple for me. If you've got Booker first team and Morant second team, that's fine. But I've got Morant first team, Booker second. And obviously, Steph Curry, yeah, he had the big shooting slump, but, I mean, his numbers were still really good for the year. He started the year off on a tear. He finished the year out playing really well. And despite the shooting being down, the rest of his game was excellent all year long. A down year, and still a down year for Steph Curry. He's still one of the 10 most dangerous players in the league. His gravity, despite the slump, nobody but wanted to be the team that the slump died against. They treated him just the same. That's massively valuable in itself. The forwards, this one was tough because, the second and third team forwards, for me, because of the positions they played most season, DeMar DeRozan, to me, is a forward. It has been for several years now, since he went to the Spurs. Because of that, I went with, and this is going to make people really mad. I went with DeRozan and Durant as my second team forwards. LeBron made my third team. But I almost didn't put LeBron on All-NBA because I felt like you can talk about the surroundings around him all you want. There is no player in the league who has had more control over his surroundings than LeBron James. The players that surround him in LA are because of him. Those were his decisions. DeMar DeRozan was almost in LA this offseason. That was a done deal. LeBron nixed it for Russell Westbrook. You want to talk about hurting your hurting your team. That hurt your team. And I'm going to be completely honest, that should go into talking about All-NBA. Because if you're going to be player GM, that's something that you're doing that affects the on-court product every time you're on the court. You know what else hurts your team? Lollygagging on defense, being lazy, not going for, or making an effort for easy rebounds. Arguing with the officials instead of getting back down the court and leaving your team in a 5-on-4 situation. Because that's really helping in the moment. It's like, oh yeah, his offensive numbers were insane. Cool. His defense was easily the worst of his career. And you know what? Considering there was no other options, or there were no other options, there were no other options. He should be putting up big numbers. Guess what? Great stat. He's a good stats, bad team guy this year. You know that whole thing everybody used against Devin Booker for years? Good stats, bad team. And the only reason I'm not knocking LeBron James out is because I don't want it to seem like I'm some kind of hater, or I'm doing this because of, I hate LeBron. Because I think the argument for him versus MJ, even though it's MJ, is a lot closer than most people make it out to be. Although I also think the argument for Kobe Bryant being the greatest of all time is better than him being in that conversation. He deserves more mention than he gets. And I'm not the world's biggest Kobe fan necessarily. It's just, I'll get into that another time. But my second team forwards are Durant and DeRozan. DeRozan was incredible this year until the very end of the season. He carried that Chicago team. Like, they were blitzing during the first half of the season until just the injuries started to pile up. But DeRozan was awesome, and he deserves to be rewarded for that. Because, if you factor in the injuries for both teams, how much better was the Bulls roster really better than the Lakers during the back half of the season? Was it? Like, significantly better to where, we shouldn't reward DeRozan. And Durant, which Durant and LeBron, this is the other thing. LeBron missed a decent amount of games, so did Durant. But when Durant played, the Nets won a lot. Like, the win percentage when Durant played compared to when LeBron played, and considering everything that happened with the Nets this year, if there was a team that had more just whirlwind around the team, or as much as the Lakers, it was the Nets. The Nets at least made the play-in and advanced and made the playoffs. So I give Durant the nod there. And then my second team center is Joel Embiid. That was very easy, putting him second team. So, and then the third team gets tougher the further you get down. Chris Paul easily. Got to reward the Suns. They deserved multiple players. Chris Paul, awesome. I don't care. Sometimes it's like, once again, just because someone has a few less points, one or two less assists than some other guy, less rebounds, what have you, doesn't mean that they're less valuable. Chris Paul and what he has brought to Phoenix the last two seasons, from like off the court work and mentoring other players and helping get them prepared and putting them in the right spots, affects the on-court for everybody. Like, where I feel like for years now, LeBron James arguably has been a drain on the players around him and brought them down. Chris Paul is doing the best job of his career of bringing people up. And he's always done that throughout his career, bring people up. And just look at Devin Booker. Devin Booker was really good before. Devin Booker is great. And a lot of that is because of Booker's own work ethic. Don't get me wrong. But Paul helps put him in better spots. Like, Paul just makes everything around him better on both ends of the court. So, Paul gets a third-team slot. The other guard spot was really tough because there were a lot of options for the third-team slot. If you want to go with, like, if you wanted to go with, say, Jimmy Butler, because of the Heat being a number 1 seed, his defense, although his offensive numbers sucked, I wouldn't. But if you want to go with Butler, okay. I can see some people considering Jaylen Brown. Like Trae Young, very much should be in the discussion. Sorry, just totally blanked for a second there. Darius, I can see an argument for Darius Garland. But it seemed like a lot of the big name guards had reasons that they got knocked out. Like Harden eliminated himself from contention because at this point he's decided, I guess, he doesn't care about basketball. He doesn't care about actually performing his job. At some point, like, and especially the whole thing with Ben Simmons, which is just a joke. Ben Simmons should have to pay back every cent he earned this year. What he did this year was pathetic, and it is a stain on the National Basketball, every National Basketball Association player. Like, he hurt all of them with what he did this year because the owners are going to be able to use that in negotiations in the future, and and Harden too a lesser extent. But what Harden has done the last 2 seasons, what Simmons has done this year, I mean, the National Basketball Players Association, they should have a meeting where every player just gets in a room, like they get like some small like amphitheater, and they just put Harden and Simmons on stage, and each player just berates them individually for as long as it takes for every player to berate them for hurting like perception of players around the league and players' bargaining power in future CBA negotiations, because that's exactly what's going to happen because of this, and rightfully so. But you know, Kyrie Irving had very unfair circumstances he had to deal with this year. Damian Lillard got hurt. He was playing poorly because of an injury, and then, you know, eventually shut it down. Maybe you consider CJ McCollum. I don't. Oh gosh. Maybe you consider. I mean, I mentioned several guys, probably that, or all the guys that really deserve consideration. Bradley Beal wasn't nearly as good this year. I mean, it was guard play was just down. Fred VanVleet maybe deserves some consideration. I thought about it, but at the end of the day, Trae Young's stats and his impact on the Hawks offensively, like, you just have to give him that third team slot. So the third team guards are Paul and Young. Third team forwards, LeBron James and Pascal Siakam for me. Had to be the picks. Particularly, like, wanted to reward Siakam for his defense and his overall play. And the third team center was Karl Anthony Towns. Towns had an awesome season. Some players who didn't make All-NBA that definitely deserve mention, like I said, Butler, Brown, Adebayo, Fred VanVleet, man, I'm blanking on players at the moment for some reason. Michael Bridges for his two-way play. Could see someone considering him. Actually don't think DeAndre Ayton's got enough love in. I didn't even mention him during defensive or all defensive team and defensive player of the year, but Ayton was really great this year. Donovan Mitchell, had a great season. He was another guy for third team guard that I had to I'll say he was a close contender for that spot. So anyway, so for my 3 All-NBA teams, just to wrap this up real quick, you've got John Morant, Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic. That's my All-NBA first team. My All-NBA second team is Devin Booker, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, DeMar DeRozan, Joel Embiid. The third team is Chris Paul, Trae Young, LeBron, DeMar DeRozan, Karl Anthony Towns. So with that being said, I'm going to end the show for today. I think I'll take an allergy pill and get some breakfast. So thank y'all for hanging out this morning or listening afterward. And I will see you probably at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Somewhere around 3 o'clock this afternoon. Because I'm liking doing a morning show and an afternoon show and then just having my evenings to do whatever.